Greetings, and welcome to the 20th episode of Morrowind Modding Interviews, and today we're interviewing Fulgore, the author of Balmora Underworld. Thanks for agreeing to do this interview.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here with being interviewed right now.
And going right into our first set of questions, the first question I have for you here is, when did you first start playing Morrowind and the Elder Scrolls in general?
I first played Morrowind a few months back in 2002. I spent a few hours running and jumping around, doing a few quests here and there, but I never really got much into it. My computer back then wasn't that great, so the game was quite slow, it didn't really have much frame per second and wasn't very stable. I moved to other games for a few years and I came back to it around 2011, a bit before Skyrim was released, and I've been modding it since then.
Oh yes, I remember that Morrowind was quite the resource hog back in the early days. I know my first computer had a lot of trouble trying to run Morrowind.
Yeah, mine too. I had a lot of places where frame rate went below 10 or 5 frames per second. It was something not much playable, and it crashed basically every 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of trouble with my early computer with crashing as well. And going into our next question, how much after starting playing the original Morrowind did you get through before, you had the itch to actually start modding it? Like, have you actually finished the game before you started making mods?
I didn't play much the game. I think I finished the main quest, the Great House Lalu, once. I think I've done a few random quests here and there, and that's it pretty much. Then I noticed something called construction set, and basically I forgot about the game.
Now, what was your first mod, and how did you get the idea for it?
I started looking for tutorials on the internet, and basically my first mod was a small house under the wall near the Sea Strider in Balmora. It was nothing special, it was just a big, large room with a few cheat items and lots of empty crates.
Oh yes, and what would you say draws you to modding video games?
I love making my own stuff, whether it's just escaping or detailing a small plot of land or building a large dungeon or cave, literally rock by rock.
Now going into some more specific modding questions, you're arguably one of the best dungeon designers in the Morrowind modding community, at least I think so. So I'm sort of curious, what do you think is the most important aspect of dungeon design?
Well, thanks for the compliment, and I think that every dungeon should have a special moment where basically the player stops for a second and asks himself what else is this place. Basically, it could be a huge room full of all sorts of detail after walking for a few minutes through a narrow path, or maybe even it could be a scripted sequence or a battle out of ordinary with a unique enemy. Pretty much anything that helps the dungeon stand out from boredom or anonymity.
Now, in your mind, do you think that environmental storytelling, which is to say using object placement to sort of tell a story, is important for crafting a good dungeon? Using the environment itself to tell part of the story of what's happened in a particular dungeon?
Yes, I think it's an important part. Usually when I plan a dungeon or anything else, I always ask myself how people or creatures in there have affected or have been affected by the environment they live in. I think a player would recognize immediately the differences between a place where some characters have lived in a place for months, for game months, or just a cave done with a few characters thrown there at the last minute.
Now, moving on to a question about probably your best well-known mod, how did you get the idea for Balmora Underworld, and some of its more iconic locations?
I was contacted by Transmaster after I posted a few screenshots of a dungeon I was working on a few years ago. He told me that he would have liked Dwemer Ruin under Balmora, but he already had a small sewer system in place, which was quite similar to the canal works in Vivek. The original plan was to basically have this sewer system with a ruin hidden somewhere. It was quite simple at the time. Basically, it was a cell for the sewers, another cell for a cave, or two cells for a cave, and a couple of other cells for the ruin itself. And basically, well, we all know how it ended up. It was something much bigger than it was planned at the beginning.
Oh yes, and Balmora Underworld is a really massive dungeon, and I think the sort of really neat thing about it is that it's entirely possible for the player to miss most of the content. A lot of the dungeon is, kind of hidden. If you just walk through the Thousand Lanterns Way, you're missing the vast majority of what Balmora Underworld has to offer. Do you think that sort of hidden element, making the player really look around the environment to find all the dungeon secrets, adds to the appeal of a dungeon mod for the player?
I hope it does. At least it works with me. It's what I love the most in games like Morrowind or Skyrim. Exploring basically everything just to stumble upon some hidden location which may hide some treasure, or maybe not.
Oh yes, that's always a fun part of dungeon design, and going into that, how important would you say interior detailing is in dungeons? I've noticed that most of your dungeons are extremely detailed with lots of hand-placed items. Is that an aspect of dungeon design you consider essential to making good dungeons, as opposed to randomly generated dungeons like the ones used in gen mods?
I'd say it's important, but not essential. I guess it depends on what importance the dungeon has compared to the rest of the mod, and what basically a modder want to achieve. If I want to make a long dungeon crawl with tens of enemy, I would create environments much less detailed to make it more gameplay friendly. While if my focus was more on exploration rather than combat, or maybe I'm just building a dungeon that can be used as player home once it has big tier, I think I would go crazy with details.
Oh yes, detailing is one of my favorite aspects of dungeon design. And going into this next question, you've kind of already gone into this a little bit. You've done a lot of work for Morrowind Rebirth, from providing many of the well-known dungeons, like obviously Balmora Underworld, but also Outpost Renus and Drin's Hidden Caverns. And you've also designed many of the new interiors in the project. And I'm just sort of curious, how did you end up working on Morrowind Rebirth, and are you still working on that project?
Transmaster, the mod creator, contacted me after he saw a few screenshots I posted on a thread. The thread show us what you're working on. Basically, I work on and off on Rebirth, and usually Transmaster send me a message where he tells me what he has in mind. If I can, I'm happy to help him.
Speaking of Outpost Renus, that's another really massive dungeon that you've created that's sort of rather deceptive on the surface to how large it is. What was your original idea when you started out building it?
It was something I started doing in my free time. I had this idea about basically a tower completely dark, haunted by ghosts, which were completely different from the ghosts you usually see in vanilla Morrowind. The idea was to have basically invisible people wearing pieces of armor, and it didn't turn out as cool as I thought it would be. So I decided to just use a normal skeleton.
Oh yeah, and there's some really cool environments though in Outpost Remus, and it really just sort of opens up the further down you go, and I love how it sort of tells a story about, what happened clearly they broke into something that they weren't supposed to, and the entire place got overrun. And it's that sort of thing that I really love about dungeon design, is when it tells a story.
Oh yes, it's something I love as well. Basically, just to have an environment for a player to explore, and that basically can just get an idea of what happened before he came to the place.
Oh yes, and now you're also designing a dungeon for ModTown 2015, our community project for the community, by the community. Can you tell us a little bit about that dungeon?
Sure. Basically, it's an ebony mine. It's an ebony mine where you can find a few smugglers that dig too deep until they eventually break down into the wall of Dwemer Ruin. Basically, the most original dungeon of 2015. A few of the miners die almost immediately after entering the ruin, and because they got attacked by a few creatures in there. And the player then enters the mine and basically kills everything.
Now, are you working on any other modding projects outside of ModTown 2015 or Morrowind Rebirth?
Not right now. I don't have much free time. Maybe in the future.
Alright, so going into some more general modding questions, do you do any planning before you start a mod, and if so, how?
I don't do much planning. When I start a mod, I have a general idea of what I would like to do, and then I go out my way to overcomplicate it. Sometimes it works, while most of the time it doesn't.
Oh, I love how you say that you go out of your way to overcomplicate it. It kind of sounds like a feature creep, which is, something that modders have to deal with all the time, it seems.
It's not much feature creep. Basically, for example, when I was building the sewers in Balmora Underworld, I think I redone the old place 4 or 5 times or something like that. It started as a single cell and it ended up with something 4 or 5 times bigger than it started with.
Oh yeah, that does tend to happen a bit. And have you been influenced by any non-Elder Scrolls games when you mod, like possibly other RPGs like the Gothic series?
Not really. I don't play much games. I don't have much free time, and when I got a few free time for myself, I love just to mod Morrowind.
Well, sort of on a similar note, are there any modders who have inspired or influenced you in some way? And if so, what was it about their work that inspired you?
Yes, there are quite a few awesome people whose work have inspired me, like Melchior, Scamp, Predator, and Vality, just to name a few.
Now, this is a sort of off-topic question, but do you like to listen to music while you mod? And if so, what do you like to listen to?
I like to listen to anything Cell Dweller or Blue Stally, or maybe I go on YouTube and look for hours-long ambient tracks. Carbon-based lifeforms, Ice Dana and Solar Field work most of the time. And I also love to listen to the Skyrim soundtrack every now and then.
Going back to a modding question, if you could make a single change to the capabilities of the construction set, what would it be?
I'd love to have the chance to be in-game just by pressing a key. I don't know how the feature is called. It's something that I really miss from other editors like the Sandbox or the Unreal editor.
Oh yes, it is a bit difficult to test something you've just built with Morrowind, because you have to go through activating it through the game launcher, then starting up the game, then loading up a character. You can't exactly just immediately go into your environment, so to speak.
Yes, especially if you forget to save the mod before launching the game.
Oh yeah, that would definitely be a bit of a problem. And this next question is from Illy. Have you gotten any help from other modders with your mods? And if so, how have other modders helped you?
Envy made some dialogue and quest for Balmora Underworld, and me and Tressmaster worked together to build the Balmora New Market District.
Now, how much do you use the community to get feedback and motivation for your mods? Like, do you depend on feedback to sort of motivate you to actually finish a mod?
Not much, to be honest. Unless I got some requests, usually I mod just for myself, and people seem to like what I do.
This is sort of a random question. I was kind of curious. I noticed that you have Balmora Underworld up on the Nexus independently from Morrowind Rebirth, but Outpost Remus I think is only available through Morrowind Rebirth. Have you ever thought about maybe releasing that as a standalone?
No, I never thought about it. Maybe see with Transmaster if it's something I can do.
Now, going back to our, established list of questions, are there any particular model resources you like to use in your mods, if any?
I like to use vanilla assets as much as I can because I think it adds a bit of an extra challenge to the mod creation. For example, sometimes I have to use meshes quite creatively.
Now, are there any skills that you've learned from modding? And if so, have you been able to use those skills anywhere else?
I think by modding Morrowind I've learned to be patient. For example, when I launch Morrowind to test something I've done, only to find out that nothing works because I forgot to save the mod.
Oh yes, modding can be quite tedious, and it does help to be the patience for it when you're working on a major mod, like the big dungeons that you've made with Balmora Underworld and Outpost Remus. And sort of off topic, but are there any other games outside the Elder Scrolls series that you enjoy playing? And if so, what do you like about them?
I tried some older versions of Minecraft, but I got bored after I noticed how everything was quite static. There was much really going on after you build an house or something like that. And every now and then I still enjoy a playthrough of the first Crisis.
Sort of a different question. What mods and modders currently have your attention in the community?
Basically anything done by Melchior or Scamp, and I always check the threads on Morrowind code patch and the scripting standard.
Now, are there any mods that you look at and think, I wish I made that?
I think there is a mod called the notice board for Skyrim, where basically you can read the notes attached to public boards and get some quests in that way. It would be fun to have something similar to that for Morrowind, maybe with notes reflecting quests completed by the player, or maybe out of ordinary events like when someone kills an important character, or maybe the player will start jump all over Balmora Vivek.
Now, what do you think of Open Morrowind? And do you plan to make any Open Morrowind only mods once it's released?
I'm really looking forward to it. I'm sure there will be some really fun time ahead. And for OpenMW only mods, I don't know, since I mostly do interiors, I would love to have the chance to have different workspaces like in Oblivion or Skyrim or Fallout games. But even interior style with terrain should be okay, I guess.
Oh yes, I imagine that having separate world spaces would allow for a lot more different creative designs and dungeons, because then you could use the terrain editor inside of a dungeon to sort of create something that's a bit more open-spaced.
Yes, that, and there will be a lot less conflict with mass mods.
Oh yes, very true, and you've already kind of answered this, but are there any features, systems, and or mechanics that you are most looking forward to being de-hard-coded in Open Morrowind?
Well, other than workspaces, I think I'd love to see the ability to have new skills and maybe an even more customizable user interface. To have something like Sky UI for Morrowind, or maybe even just a mod configuration menu.
Oh yes, the UI is a common complaint of Morrowind, and just sort of going into our final set of questions here, what do you think about the other Elder Scrolls games like Oblivion, Skyrim, and the Elder Scrolls Online?
I love play Skyrim and I wish I had more time to play Oblivion. Never played the Elder Scrolls Online or Arena and Daggerfall for that matter.
Now, what do you think makes the Morrowind modding community so vibrant after more than a decade?
It's friendliness, pretty much. It's the best community I have had the pleasure to be part of.
Oh, very true. It is a very friendly community. And do you think there's anything the Morrowind modding community should be doing in order to continue to expand and grow in the coming years?
I think we should just keep modding. We've been around for so much time, maybe 10, more than 10, 12 years, and we still enjoy what we do. So basically, there is not much else to add to it. Everything will come by itself. Or maybe we could just crowdfund a campaign to find the Morrowind Lore on the moon. Should work as well.
Now, is there any advice you'd like to give to budding new Morrowind modders out there looking to release their first mod?
Yes, just do it. Don't be afraid of release what you do. Keep modding, you'll get better, and maybe we will have a new awesome modder with us.
Finally, is there anyone in the community you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to Transmaster and in particular, and to all of the other modders of this community who, in a way or another, have made Morrowind the glorious games it is today.
Alright, that pretty much wraps up all the questions I have for you, so thanks again for agreeing to do this interview.
Thanks for having me.